So I'd like to start by saying that this isn't my vision by any means, and I wish I could have been this big visionary who can come up with all these great things, but I'm not. Uh, I think this is a accumulation of the feedback of the ideas from a great number of people. Uh, it's the feedback from all of the Envoy operators, from companies that run Envoy in their infrastructure. Uh, it's also the reality of our technology where we are today. Uh, so that's with that out of the way. If I have missed something, if somebody thinks that there is some new important features for Envoy that I have missed, just reach out to me. I'm sure I have missed some things that are, maybe on your list, but I, I didn't include in here. And since I only have 15 minutes, I'd like to break it up into really fairly big areas and not focus on improving like individual components and filters. So this is not a reflection on the importance of refactors in some of our extensions, adding new features. This is just the fact that I don't have enough time to cover everything. And I think the most important part is that Envoy serves workloads, right? Envoy connects users to applications or applications to applications. And when the new workloads come up, then that's where we need to go. We go where the workloads go. And, you can call me Captain Obvious. In today's day and age, this is all about generative AI. Uh, Agentic workloads. And I split those workloads into two big categories just for me to be able to analyze them a little bit more helpful. And it's the inference requests. These are usually requests that are going to AI ML models. And for us, we look at two different use cases for ingress and egress, serving, either self-hosted models or trying to serve the external models. So this is all reflected. You've heard presentations in the Envoy AI Gateway, and that's the main driving force behind it today. There are several efforts in the Kubernetes community as well. Uh, extensions for the inference extensions for the Kubernetes gateway. There is also right now an effort to start the agent gateway within the Kubernetes community, where Envoy would be one of the reference implementations. So, but for specifically for the inference requests, we are looking at the buffering improvements in Envoy, being able to handle very large requests uh, and implement things like offloading the memory or change the Envoy architecture slightly so it can utilize its own memory more efficiently for serving of the inference requests. The other area that I mentioned earlier is the cross-service failover. This is a new failover model that we didn't have before. We usually, fail over between the endpoints within the service. However, for especially for serving external models, this is a very common request uh, that this is a common requirement that the request can fail over from a more expensive but fast service to a small, maybe a slower but less expensive service, or have a failover based on quota. Just coming down to quota, there's a couple of different ways to implement this in Envoy. However, one key feature that's missing there today is to be able to fail over based on when the quota has been reached or exceeded. So for agentic workloads, this is specifically we're touching protocols like MCP or A2A. We want to implement the support for them as uh, we want to make sure that Envoy is aware of these protocols and deframes them and makes them available for any business logic that people want to implement in Envoy. So the key here is that we want to allow operators to apply policies using sort of a native properties of these protocols. So you can apply, for instance, authorization policy to the tool names or annotate the tool lists, and sort of work with the actual protocol abstractions rather than like with some with some lower level abstractions. We want to add annotations. This is an interesting feature in that the tools today, they don't really tell if this is a real read-only tool or read-write tool. And we want to provide a policy where when you retrieve a list of tools, you can automatically using some sort of matching functions to annotate tools that this is a read-only, this is read-write, and then also create a policies based on these annotations so that you can say that this client identity can only call read-only tools, or only this client identity is allowed to call the right tools. And last but not least, we want to make sure that uh, these protocol abstractions that we're surfacing, for MCP, for A2A, gRPC there as well, that they are natively supported by the XProc. So that instead of having to pick apart through the HTTP protocol inside the XProc, you can just directly receive from Envoy, let's say, an entire MCP payload or gRPC payload. And kind of make it simpler for XProc implementers, implement things, focus on the things that they really care about. For instance, implementing external guardrails for MCP or OpenAI messages, and not have to deal with the actual like protocol specifics for how it's being transported. So Uh, generative AI and agentic workloads is not the only game in town. We have a lot of other things that have been added to Envoy or currently being in development. So one of the really big features is the reverse tunnels. This provides for the new network topologies and allows people to connect uh, private cloud or on-prem services that are behind the NAT uh, to as a backend services. So these reverse tunnels were implemented by Rohit, Basundra. I don't know if there's anybody else was involved there in the design. Sorry if I missed your names. I think it's a very interesting feature that especially the cloud providers or people who have to connect on-prem data centers would be very interested in. So I already mentioned the support for high-level protocols in XProc. We're also adding a new mode where the XProc can actually stream the local responses back. And that enables us a number of use cases like caching, like implementing caching. Uh, like HTTP caching in particular, it's a very complicated, it's a fairly complicated affair, and it's sometimes difficult to create a filter that fits all of the different use cases or all the different infrastructure hardware. So we want to actually give people an ability to um, actually make an external service that can implement the caching layer. But caching layer is only one of the examples, like handling MCP transcoding. There are many other cases where an ability like this would be useful. We're adding support for federation in the XDS control plane. So it means that Envoy will be able to aggregate configuration from multiple sources of truth. Uh, so that may simplify the deployment of control planes for people that need to have either a fragmented control plane or their existing control plane grew too large and it maybe would be good to shard it. And the other feature is a level 4 XProc. So this is specifically an XProc that deals with the network payloads that have been decrypted from, decapsulated from TTLS tunnels, um, where the primary users might be deep inspection firewalls or any other external policy that want to look at the actual network payload before it's being sent to the higher level codecs like HTTP codec or gRPC codec, etc. And so the other area that I think we want to focus is the Envoy extensibility. There's already great talk today by Takeshi about the filters, about the Rust filters, dynamic loadable modules, and the WASM extensions are planned to be taken out of alpha and make them more productized. We'll probably focus on just a few runtimes to begin with. And then coming back to Rust, I think dynamic modules, I really see that as a probably a way for us to develop not just Envoy extensions, but eventually go into the Envoy core in Rust. I think while Rust is complicated, I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. It's a lot less complicated than C++, and it gives us a lot of very good features that C++ lacks, especially around memory safety, which we still have a fair number of memory safety errors. And it has very good patterns that we can use in Envoy fairly extensively for async await and reduce our reliance on callbacks, which is probably like 90% of all of the memory issues come from Envoy callbacks. Uh, and it's also just a reality. C++ is kind of becoming a dinosaur, and it's harder to find people who are experienced in it, who are willing to write new code in it. And Rust I think it's a great replacement and a great continuation. And the last one that I wanted to mention around governance, I think, especially around the xproct and xtalz, we see a lot more adoption outside of Envoy. And we're thinking that moving protobufs into the repository that's separate from Envoy would allow better governance where the different stakeholders can contribute to the protocols or discuss, the implementing more of the changes. And I think I duplicated XDS Federation here. So that is a rough description of what I think is in store for 2026. And I think I have a couple of minutes for questions. Um, Oh, yes, a very important thing that I want to bring up and how you can help. And there are multiple ways. And of course, we look for contributors. Uh, but I think for what we want is actually to know what problems you are solving. And if Envoy doesn't solve them, please let us know. There are multiple ways. Please create GitHub issue. You can mail to Envoy users, join Slack. If all else fails, you can just send me a message on Slack. Contributors again, and dial in for community meeting. It's monthly, and I put in a Zoom link. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Jon, for taking the time to put this presentation together and sharing with everyone. And also, you've been doing a great job throughout this conference, as well as asking people questions about how they are using Envoy. So I really appreciate that. I got one question for you that I put in, and that is, what are valuable features that you wish would get more attention and people behind it to make a reality? Because I do appreciate that in open source, it can be really tricky, right? There, it's all volunteer based in a sense. So, what are things that you wish that could get a bit more, maybe power and engineers
Right.
behind it?
Right. Uh, I think there is a lot. There is a lot, and anything from the build system, right? Somebody who might not know how to write C++, but know how to create a good build system, help us find flaky tests, like all of the things that create a friction in development that slow down CI, make people have to go and restart. We want to improve that. So that is one big area that is open and ripe for contributions. I think obviously helping all these hot topic, hot potato areas like MCP and A2A, we welcome your issues. We will look at your PRs. We will discuss the architecture with you. There's definitely a lot of unanswered questions there. What's the most efficient way to do framing? So all contributions are ideas, feedback is welcome there.
What would you say to someone who may be working in because I've been there, I worked in organizations where you may feel a bit awkward about raising a public issue or even posting in a public Slack channel. What advice would you give to those people?
Uh, it will take a little bit of getting over with, and I understand that that's a it can be daunting, but this is a very friendly community. Nobody is going to laugh or say, oh, this is trivial. There's no problem too small, and I think also it's a fact that there are probably a lot of other people who have exactly the same issue, and when you bring this up, they will put their thumbs up, pluses, and you will actually feel that there's a fair amount of support rather than maybe scorn or belittling. And if if it's difficult, just reach out to me or reach out to any other person that you feel is safe in the community. But in general, I have never seen anybody being turned away or laughed at. I think it's a very safe community.
Well, thank you, Jon. Really, really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your experience. And for anyone who's got more questions, please join the Slack. I put some links in here on how to join. I put a direct Envoy Slack invite link in there. I also put the community invite link that is pinned. You can use that, and you can find the Envoy Dev and Envoy users channels. You can also find the specific Virtual EnvoyCon 2025 channel where you can find all of the Slack handles for all of the presenters. Today you can find Jan specifically if you want, and you can DM him. So thank you, Jan, and I will close up the conference with
Thank you
some
so much.
closing remarks. Yeah, thank you, Jan. It's been lovely having you for both at the beginning of the day and at the end. So thank you so much.